No conflicts of interest? Good. They need to be major or we'll keep going because there's been a lot of serious business here today. Right, we move to item 4 there, page 1, the minutes of the last meeting. Any alterations? No additions? We have a perfect minute taker, so shouldn't imagine there'll be anything. You don't want to alter anything, do you, Philip? Is it not, your screen not come up? Righto. Like somebody like to move that these minutes be received. Councillor Ellis, Councillor Urquhart, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. We're not trying to get through the meeting quick, it's just happening. Thanks for your diligence of reading all this stuff. Building services, anything to add, Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, we're just progressing along nicely. It's been quite a busy start. As part of the March figures, the consents for the 2 new buildings at the Eastfields have been issued, so that's going to start. You should see the hoarding up down there now. So finally we have a start on the town centre development for Eastfields, so that's good. The Mooney building is ticking along nicely as well, so they're a year out from opening, and that's ticking along as well. And we've also got planning preliminary contact with the Ministry of Education on the school upgrades for Allenton, Intermediate and the college. But that's a long game, so the college won't be occupied till 2025, and the Intermediate and Allenton School is 2021. So, but the planning is underway.
Any questions on the on what page 3, 4 and 5, is it? 3, 4 and 5 there? Councillor Brown?
Just another question, probably, Michael. How many houses, residential houses, are we building in the district every year at the moment? Is it going up, down, steady?
It went down, but in the last 2 years it's coming back up again. So we were 164 houses last financial year, and compared to 158 the previous year. So it's starting to track back up. Straight after the quakes, 2013, 2014, we were over 230 those years, but it's starting to get back up. Still way above pre-earthquakes. We were only doing just over 100, so we're still well up.
Councillor Urquhart?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regards to the values of the building, it's since October, or sort of right through, the value is down a bit. Yes, the number of consents or applications is probably back a bit as well. With these last 2 major buildings that you mentioned earlier, will that bring that average up to more what it was in the previous year?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the values are going up each financial year. So last financial year we were almost half the value of actual number of consents, but the value of work was higher than the previous year. So this year we're on track for that as well. We did roughly 154 million, I think, in the last financial year. So it's quite a lot of work. Again, pre-earthquakes, we were only averaging 80 million.
Nothing further there. Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask, it's probably not relating directly to this, but consents for structures and things, especially we had one on reserve land down there at Hines. How informed are all these clubs and what have you on land? You know, how informed are they on structures that are needing consents? Is the information out there, or yeah, how would they go about knowing what they should be doing and not doing? And statute, yeah, I was talking about a statute actually, yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's getting better. Just a bit more education needs to be put out there. Once we knew about the certain structure, it was a quick, simple visit, and everything was clarified, and no consents were actually required. But because it was on council land, we should have been notified before the work had actually started.
Oh, thank you. I was just wondering with, the elections coming around again in October, should there be some fact sheets and stuff heading out to all these new boards and reserves and just kind of keeping everybody updated what we can do, can't do, and
Yeah, and I think through you, Mr. Chair, that's the problem with when the boards keep
Change.
changing, is somebody always knows about it and then they go off the board. Yeah, and it's just that flow on of that information to the new board.
Anything further? Because I got a real apology. We've actually an apology from our Environmental Services Manager who's been laid low for the day, so apology from Jane Donaldson. And she's put Michael in the hot seats today, so but anything we don't know or haven't answered, he will come back to us. So thank you for that, Michael. The seat fits you very nicely, but just don't think about leaving at any stage.
No, quite comfortable where I am.
Right, planning. Is there anything down there that you'd like to bring up? Our planning manager's full of answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't think there's anything particularly we want to raise out of this, except to say that it's probably pretty obvious that we had a pretty quiet month of March. It's been the beginning of this calendar year has been very, very quiet, but just in the last couple of weeks we've started to see things pick up a little bit. There is, rumours and quite a lot of informal discussion going on, but it's yet to sort of through this to translate into consents at the moment. So that's all I'd have to say at the moment.
Any questions here for our manager? Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will you take a question now on item 5.2.3, District Plan?
Yes, we could move on to that.
Great, thank you. So through you to Ian, just reading about Plan Change 2 and the fact that there have been 11 submissions, and I read that there will be hearings in regards to the remaining matters. Could you just refresh me, please, who will be on the hearing panel and how was that selected?
Through the chair, the hearing panel will be via a delegated commissioner, an independent commissioner that will be chosen through delegation through the Environmental Services Group Manager, but that is to make a recommendation on the submissions. It's not to make the final decision. The final decision goes to council for ratification and adoption.
Thank you. And a second question, this time on item 5.2.4, National Planning Standards. And I note that the next district plan is due to commence in 2020. Just wondering what's your approximate completion date for that next district plan review?
Through the chair, I'm really glad you asked that question. I think we like to think that it will be completed in around about financial year 2024-25. I think we've got, from memory, 2 years from public notification to decisions, although that can be amended, that can be extended if necessary. But of course, as with all of these things, it will be difficult. It's really based on the number of submissions we get, and that's where the initial public consultation in an informal setting is so important, that we gauge the will of the population and what they want to see, to try and address a lot of those issues before we actually get to that stage of not so much submissions but appeals, which can drag on for years. And so the ideal will be to try and resolve those matters and get, as I'm sure we'd all agree, to get what the public want in their plan and what they need to have for the future of the district. So that's where all of the groundwork comes in to start with. So that's what we're planning on starting next year.
Anything further, anyone else there? Move on to miscellaneous, 5.3.1, the menacing dogs, that's moved on pretty well. Building law reforms, do you want to say something about that, Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently out for consultation is the building law reform, and you'll see the main topics that they have listed there. So this is a major bit of work by the government. It will impact on us, not the next financial year, but the year after. We'll be collecting more data, and so there'll be more questions asked of the applicants. And also tying in with this is a 6-month review of the actual building code itself. So that's currently running side by side for consultation. So there are changes proposed to come in on the 1st of July. Just one of the minor changes would be, as an example, would be mechanical ventilation, so making it compulsory for extractor fans in bathrooms, whereas at the moment the law says you just have to have an opening window. They're proposing that from the 1st of July you must have mechanical ventilation to prove that you're getting rid of all that steam and condensation, because not everybody will open a window every time they have a shower. And also putting that mechanical ventilation into laundries, toilet and kitchen areas. So, and that's to tie in also with the Residential Tenancies Act for rental properties as well, so making the laws actually consistent between themselves. Those are the two major consultation documents that we will be doing submissions on.
Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Are they going to make it compulsory to switch that fan on?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it'll be probably compulsory to switch it, link it to the light switch. So when you turn on the light switch for the room, the fan will go on, and when you switch off the light, the fan will stay on for 30 seconds. So unless you want to shower in the dark, most likely it will be on. Yeah.
Happy there? Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask, so that they're not looking at having certificated work on tradesmen and stuff at all, because I know there's a lot of shoddy work done. When an electrician comes in, you always get a certificate of appliance, and you know that the work's done, you got some come back. Are they kind of looking at that for tradies and things, because there's a lot of work substandard going on out there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So they currently do have certification for any residential work and any work that is for the weather tightness of the building. And part of this law reform would be bringing that into the commercial sector as well, because at the moment anybody can build a commercial building. They don't have to be licensed, they don't have to be qualified. They're looking at bringing that same certification process through to commercial.
Nothing further there?
The other question I had
Supplementary.
was supplementary was the DIY people in the weekend. We've seen a bit of that on Fair Go and stuff lately, and I was just looking at people are putting in basins and doing their own plumbing, because I had a plumber at home and he was too busy trying to fix up all these cock-ups. Is this what they're trying to do here to stop that? Sorry.
Yeah, trying to regulate it more rather than stop it, because they don't want to stop the DIY culture that we have, but just put some common sense, clear rules behind it, so that a person knows that if they got to touch a vanity or a shower, that a plumber should be involved, etc. Make it quite clear, so that just clarifies what a person can or can't do as part of DIY.
Happy enough there with the answers? Thank you. Move on to 5.4 with the minutes of the Town Centre Working Group, with the absence of the Environmental Services Manager and Councillor Rollinson, who chaired that. Would you like to make a comment, Madam Mayor?
I'd just like to congratulate those involved in the work that's been done so far. There seems to be progress made, which is positive. I just had some questions though on the last page, page number 10. There are several comments around the building that's currently on the green, and I just am really keen that in future, before we make any decisions about that building, that we better understand how it was gifted to us, what any conditions were, that we don't make a misstep. And also keen to see that the cycle strategy is progressing, but that's it for me.
Okay, we'll clean that one up. Planning manager, would you like to respond on the old information centre building? And I know you've got another couple of wee things on your plate there on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In relation to the information centre building, I believe there is quite a bit of work being done, primarily led by the commercial property manager on this, and I believe that there's a report being prepared. Is that correct? For presentation at, is it Service Delivery? FABS, the FABS meeting, yeah. Okay, in due course. So I think that hopefully should shed some more light on the situation. And the cycle strategy, again, that's, is that the group manager for, yeah, that's being progressed as well by the Open Spaces team, is that correct? Or the roading team, yes. So this project is slightly isolated in terms of the fact that it does, I guess, it does propose cycle linkages, and they will, of course, be integrated into that eventual project. Yeah.
Would you like to carry on and give you what you've managed to do with the lining the businesses up?
Yes.
What the process is?
So, councillors will likely be aware that there's been some ongoing discussions with business owners and landowners in the town centre for a number of years now, right the way back to, or certainly around the time that I started in early 2012. So, as the latest part of this, on the 10th of April, we sent a letter to all the landowners in the town centre, asking them as best they can to tell us what their plans are. So fundamentally, our concern at this point is that works all going to plan will be likely to commence around about the end of this calendar year. If and when that does happen, the road will be excavated and obviously the services will be exposed for renewal. So the ideal scenario in that instance would be that private building owners, where they can, would tell us in advance of any new services that they want to put in, or vehicle crossings or anything else, so that we can try and factor them in and either install them as part of that work or at least anticipate where they're going to go. The contrary to that is that if that doesn't happen, then we end up with a slightly less advantageous situation where people may want to dig up the newly improved road surface and then repair it afterwards, which obviously is to nobody's benefit, or in the worst case scenario, they might not be able to, or they might have to rearrange their plans because we might have put a rain garden or a lamppost in the way. So this idea was to really encourage people as best they can to come forward and tell us what their plans are. The trouble is, of course, that what we're finding is still that a lot of landowners are in a little bit of flux about what they want to do, and that's understandable. You know, it is a very difficult situation, and there's probably numerous commercial decisions to be made in relation to this. But I think it's important that we ask the question now and to try and get people to tell us what they can, so that we can anticipate and work together if possible.
Yeah, not only council, the building people have got eight odd months to think if they've got a reasonably free opportunity to put those services in.
Yes.
Yes. And willing staff to help them through the process. Yeah. Councillor Brown.
Someone is waiting down the other side.
Oh,
Thank you.
pull it around so I can see. Hold eyes.
I was going to go back to the building on East Street that we were talking about previously. I have a question. Perhaps the CE might be best placed to answer this. Are we constrained about what we can do with that building by the MOU that we have in place with that group who were wishing to use it? Because of my understanding is we gave them until our new library civic centre was built.
What's the process the staff are working through? Does anyone want to answer, or leave that for another day?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I can give a brief answer. We're still working through the potential for that building to be utilised, and there'll be a further report on that this month to the appropriate forum. It is true that we've made some commitments to that group in good faith, but equally the discussions are not concluded, and it's still to be resolved where we finally get to.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Chair, just to reply to Madam Mayor, that meeting, it was more giving them a direction for coming up with some different ideas. I don't think we voted there to remove the building. It was just coming up with some ideas what could be done on that site. That was what I understood.
And in response, I absolutely am aware of that. I was there. I know that. I'm just seeking further background.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to congratulate staff for the proactive approach they're taking with the building owners. It was one of the concerns I had, that we'd go out there and do all this work and not take them on the journey with us and actually get them involved, because it's as much to their benefit as everyone else in the district. But I must say the presentation we were given on the day for the last Town Centre Working Group was very exciting, in conjunction with everything else that's happening at the moment with our new building and that, and development of Bowring Square and everything. I think, you know, give 5 years' time, and I think our town centre is going to look remarkably different to what it does today, and I find that a very exciting time to look forward to, so just well done.
Anything further? It's just good to see councillors and staff all trying to get on the same page and make these projects useful, so pretty proud of the way you guys are working together now. So anything further on that, on the town centre group? Because this meeting's taken a lot longer than I thought it would. What's that? This one.
I'll move that we accept the activity reports.
Have we seen it? Thank you, Councillor Bell. All in favour? Aye. Never too late to be trained. Thank you, Philippa. Right, with that, we'll close the meeting, and thank you for your attendance, and just make sure you change your books, because Councillor Wilson wants just as much attention and good reading as you've given me.